Welcome to Built with Grit. I am your host and strategic partner in cost reduction, Luis Fernandez. And today we're joined by John Thacker, co founder of TBH Logistics. But before we get into that, if you're a fan of inspiring people and informative content, then you come to the right place because that's all we do. So go ahead and smash that like button. And with that, John, how you doing, my friend?
Hey, I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on, Liz.
I'm looking forward to this conversation. Was sort of looking through your LinkedIn profile, and one of the things I talk about in this podcast is that every every product or service that we exchange money for, what we don't often realize is that behind it there's a lot of heart, there's a lot of effort, there's somebody that took a risk, there's somebody that is taking a risk to make sure that we get that product into our hands. And that's a special type of person, and I like to bring those stories out and tell them so maybe we appreciate all of those little things that we experience every day. And
Yeah,
so I'm excited to have you on to share your little portion of that.
awesome. Well, thank you.
So talk to me a little bit about, because very few people go straight into being an entrepreneur, right, or business owner or whatever. So where are you from originally? Talk to me a little bit about your story of kind of growing up and how you got to where you're at. And I'll probably interrupt you there if that's cool at some point.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So, my family is kind of scattered around the New Orleans area, at Coast Guard. So, growing up, every 2 years, 3 years, we'd pull up stakes and move to another state and get to make new friends and lose old friends and all of that. So, I had, that experience growing up of having to form relationships quickly, having to deal with change and loss and that sort of thing. Um, and so, got to that age, where you go to college or do whatever. And so I went to college and, really, honestly, I kind of went for wrestling and babes, but I also got a college education out of it. um, so, and then I found out, that didn't work so well for me. So I'm there, like loading trailers for Walmart, planning how I was going to take over the world with my, amazing preparation skills and everything. And got married, and my wife kind of just told me, get your shit together and go back to grad school. So went to the University of Louisville for my MBA. I was working for a third-party logistics company at the time, and was also able to complete my black belt in Lean Six Sigma. And they were an actual um, Lean Six Sigma company. So, it was a great opportunity to be exposed to people who really believed in scientific thinking and engineering management, that sort of thing.
So what was your original degree in, and where did you go to undergrad, by the way?
I went to undergrad at Pensacola Christian College. My
Oh, okay.
um, degree, I started out in software engineering, and it took me about 30 minutes in the computer lab to figure out that it just wasn't going to work for me. Um, so I ended up graduating with a liberal arts degree, most because that was the fastest, cheapest way to get out of college.
Dude. Okay. So I'm gonna tell you, I went to University of Florida. I started as an industrial engineer. Um, and after my first semester, I did well. I had a 4.0 GPA, and I took my class, my report card back home, and I showed it to my parents. I said, just so you know, it's not because I can't do it, but because I absolutely hate it. I am changing my major. And it was like, I knew it wasn't very long into this. It was beyond the point where I could like drop all my classes and change my major. Like I was kind of stuck. And it was like, I can't do this for another 3.5 years. This isn't going to work. And then I thought, there's no way my parents are going to continue to help me out if I go to do some liberal arts, degree. And so, yeah, so that was my way of showing my parents, like, I can do it. I'm just not interested. So, and I did the same. I graduated with a history major because Now there's a little bit difference there because 9/11 happened my sophomore year. So I actually joined the ROTC program, and it was the fastest way to get into the army and finish my degree. But similar, I just hear your story and I'm like, dude, that's exactly what I did. And then I went back and got my MBA also. So like,
Yeah, yeah. Well, I had a mentor at the time, the boss of our plant. He'd actually been the boss of the Ford plant, and he was also the president National Black Caucus of Engineers. He had a double master's, I think, electrical engineering and an MBA. Sharp as a whip. Dallas Cowboys fan, but I don't hold that against him because he's from that area. But he made me a supervisor. You know, when he heard about my experience in education, and he put me in charge of a department that was losing about $40,000 a month. He said, "Turn it around."
good
So
job.
3 months later, we were making 30,000 a month, and he called me into his office, gave me a big raise, and the guy was so sharp. He gave me less than I would have asked for, but because he did it first, first mover principle, like he got to pay me less than I was worth, but I still felt like he was doing me this awesome favor. Um, so I learned a lot from
Okay.
the guy.
So hold on. That's first off, great. How did you turn around and they're losing you? That's a $70,000 a month swing. And you said 3 months, you
Yeah, it took me
accomplished that
about
in
3 months.
90 days.
Yeah.
You got to tell me more. Like that's wild. Uh,
Yeah. Well, the business situation, I won't go into, too many details. I don't want to incriminate anybody, but the business was in a situation where it had grown super fast and people were just getting things done. And nobody had stopped to think about the system. You
hmm,
know, what is the system that creates value for our business partner? Because it was a third party logistics company. And we worked with a cell phone company, not the manufacturer, but the provider.
hmm.
And we would distribute hardware, phones for this provider from multiple different manufacturers. And so we had to work with product launches, different customers of our customer require special packaging. Walmart wants their phone in a special package that has the Walmart logo on it and
Sure.
the low price on the front. So some of this co-pack, value added activity in the supply chain. So we were just throwing bodies at it, throwing horsepower at it. And I was able to use my Lean Six Sigma skills to kind of analyze it. And, the technical aspect was super easy. You can watch somebody walk for 15 minutes and figure out, 80% of your day is waste, right?
Yep.
The difficult part was the people, right?
Hmm.
And that's sort of how I've evolved in my personal development, my career, leadership, and human interaction, emotional intelligence is far more important than the technical knowledge that you might have to get something done. So I really see, the victory with this, particular situation was being able to work with the people and convince enough of them that we actually changed, right?
I'm also a Lean Six Sigma black belt. I always thought that was funny that you say you were a wrestler. I do jujitsu. It's like, and keep that on kind of on the DL, right? Wear my Lean Six black belt to the mat.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, but it's interesting you talk about that because one is once you kind of opened up to understanding how we take little bits of waste, and if you do them enough times they end up being big amounts of waste. And the first time I remember that every time I talk about that, it reminds me of a story. I had a an employee that came to me one day, and we were kind of joking around. He said, "Oh, I wait to poop until I'm at work." He says, and I kind of laughed and say, "Well, I'm like, okay, tell me more." I'm afraid to ask, but I'm curious here. And he goes, "Well, if I poop on the clock," and he like started talking about the math. He knew about how long each of these breaks cost, and then he had like done the math. And he goes, "So every year our employer pays me, and I can't remember the number. It was like $5,000 to take poops." So I
See, I'm the other way around. Like I will squeeze, man. I am not going at work. I will not do that. Like I have to be home to do it has to be an emergency. Like I just don't trust that.
so but that is, that's kind of a funny way of looking, but that's exactly what you're doing with lean. I mean, if you see that person's tool is 7 steps away, and they use it 100 times a day, they start adding, it starts adding up. I mean, we've had employees that were walking 10 miles a day.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we had multiple products, multiple SKUs. So if you think about it, take a phone, just one model of iPhone has four colors, but it also has three different memory capacities. So you've got 12 SKUs right
Yeah.
there for a single iPhone.
Right.
Now imagine that you have to provide, four different iPhone models and six different Samsung models and, LG and the Google phone, all of these products. So we had quite a bit of SKU proliferation, and this was a business to business unit. So a store orders a case of this, a store, this customer, that sort of thing, and so the um, forward pick area wasn't large enough for all the SKUs we had to pick every day, and there was a
Mm.
lot of waste built into kind of replacing product in the forward pick area in real time. Oh, I need this SKU. It's not on the floor. Um, find a fork truck driver. Flag somebody down. Hey, can you pull me down a pallet of this? Okay, can you put it back up? Things like that.
Mm.
So most businesses evolve this way, though. It's good to have these problems. It means you're growing, and we have grown really significantly. So that was the opportunity, or the reason I had the opportunity. Good thing to have, but at some point businesses have to pause long enough to evaluate sort of the whole value chain. How are we creating value? What goes into that? What does our process look like? And then let's make it efficient. Let's make it easier for the employees. Let's make it you know cheaper, more affordable, that sort of thing. And this was a um, piece rate contract, so that's why we were losing money. We didn't have the cushion of like a cost plus model or something like that.
Hmm.
But it also meant that after we made these improvements, we got to keep all the money. So really, it was a win-win for
Yeah.
everybody.
So how long did you stay there?
I think I was with that company for about 3 years. But the punchline is this general manager is the one that told me, you need to get your MBA, and
Mm.
so he sponsored my black belt, my green belt first, all of that, as well as my MBA. So I had to have
So you
the
figured
money.
all this out without having gone through any of the Six Sigma training?
No, no, this was really concurrent with my black
Okay.
belt.
Sure. All
So I
right.
had green belt at this point,
Okay.
and that's
All right. Okay. I mean, I'm not saying that one is like, you know, you have to have this qualification to be able to understand these concepts. But I was just kind of surprised that, someone would think of it that way.
yeah.
Oh, but it
No,
makes
the
sense.
I think it's a really good conversation. It's probably a separate conversation, but the the whole concept of certifications and training, um, you can have the knowledge without a certification, but nobody really knows you have it.
Hmm.
And it's it's so much more efficient, I think, effective to have a guide and a coach and somebody to really train you instead of watching YouTube videos, right?
Mm.
On the flip side, I know plenty of guys have all kinds of occasions that you know don't know what they're doing. So
Yep. Yeah. Well,
and we'll just leave it there.
yeah, we'll just leave it there. So, I mean, you mentioned that part of the problem is the human element of it. And I think that's what often gets missed because, if you're going to somebody's workspace that they spend 10 hours a day or 8 hours a day in, day out, and they've been doing it a certain way for 15 years, and you're like, hey, I've got a great idea. I'm going to switch all this up. I'm like, what are you doing? Like, get the hell out of, I got a great idea. You can get the out of my, area. That's what you can do. So winning these
Yep.
people over is not an easy task.
Yeah, and for me, part of my personal development, I guess, for some broader context, when I was loading trailers for Walmart, my entire concern was personal performance. I wanted to be the best, and I was. Um, so I got promoted to a team lead. I realized really quickly that individual performance and team performance have nothing in common. And really, I was promoted for the wrong reason. I was promoted because I was really good at loading trailers. You know, what turns out I wasn't good as a team lead, but I
Mhm.
had a team around me that recognized that quickly, team of leaders, and they put me with the right team to learn, how to be a leader. So I started studying team leadership and team dynamics and team outcomes. And then as I got, sort of further in my career, I realized that, you know, leadership affected team dynamics, and that became sort of the focus of my learning and that sort of thing. And then as I progressed further, I realized that most leadership is constrained by corporate culture. Um,
Mhm.
and so that's sort of where I'm at right now. A lot of my reading and education and study is based around the culture of the company and how does that, you know, keep people from leading effectively or encourage them to lead effectively. Um, and
Yeah.
when it's time to change, when it's time to lead an improvement project, early in my career, like at this time, I just had this idea in the back of my head that if something was logical, people would go along with it. Maybe that was the software engineering thing, coming out of it. Couldn't be farther from the truth, right? Hey, if you do this instead of that, you'll go home less tired. I don't care. I'm sorry. I, I must not have been clear. What I said was, yeah, I heard you, punk. Now screw off. Oh, okay. Well,
That
so
is
people are not functions, right?
that is spot on, an exact representation of how these conversations go
Yeah,
between a young engineering type guy and the 30-year veteran of assembly or whatever.
yeah.
I don't care. Yes, 100%. So what made you, at what point do you realize, like, hey, I can do this on my own?
Yeah. So really, the impetus for starting um, TBH, and we'll talk a little bit about what we do and why we're different. But I've been running operations, primarily warehouses in manufacturing supply chain for the most part for some time. And I had to write checks and you know, do budgets and P&Ls and all that. And I'd be looking at how much money we spent on warehouse supplies. And most of the companies I worked for either had a preferred partner, like click this link to order supplies from this large global provider, or you have a company credit card. You can always buy local if you want to, whatever,
Mm,
right? And I had some knowledge of how some of these things were manufactured from just my background and connections and stuff like that, and what the cost should look like, that sort of thing. And it was just astonishing to me how much money we were spending on warehouse supplies. And it sort of came to a head for me personally when we had a savings target and we were off by like 15,000. It was like, if I paid 5 cents less per fill in the blank, we would have beat that this year. And I thought there has to be a better way to do this. And that's where the idea of TBH was born. And the rest is history. So we started a warehouse supplies um, company. And here's how we're different. Here's what we do differently. If you've worked in a factory or a warehouse, every month like clockwork, you get this big, thick, glossy catalog from somebody with 10 million products in it that you're never going to use, right?
Yep.
And they still haven't figured out this whole like, save the environment thing. So they send out this paper catalog, every month. Well, who's paying for that?
Hmm.
The people buying the products are
Yeah.
paying for that. In fact, the current business model for warehouse supplies, the people selling you the supplies don't manufacture anything. Most of it is manufactured offshore. Some of
Right.
it is local. And they have purchasing contracts, and then they bring the product into a warehouse and they store it, and then they pay somebody to put it away, somebody to fulfill your order, pick your order, ship it to you. So really the customer is paying for manufacturing, for transportation from the original manufacturer, for storage, insurance, taxes, payroll, to ship the
Marketing.
product again, and that's all baked into your cost.
Hmm.
So what we do at TBH is we get with our customers on commonly used warehouse items, things like shrink wrap, corrugate, packing tape, void fill, banding. These are things that you use every day. I used to order a pallet of shrink wrap a month,
Yep.
at this one warehouse I was at. And then we shop around the manufacturers and find out who wants their business.
Hmm.
And then the manufacturer ships it directly to the customer. So we just cut out the middleman.
Hmm.
And by doing that, can pass that savings right along to the customer. So,
Nice.
you know, it's only a matter of time. The barriers to entry aren't super high here, but we really feel like this is the future of ordering supplies. It's almost the Amazon model for warehouses. Why should you have to pay for old school supply chain for things that you use every day, right?
I'll tell you that I'm seeing. So I used to work for a Fortune 100 myself. I was in marketing. I was a program manager, done this sourcing thing, worked in factories, see all of this, very similar with it but what I saw, for instance, in the marketing world, making a change today, if you want to stay competitive, you have to be very, very fast. Your decision making process has to be almost instantaneous. Like the amount of authority and decision making capabilities that you have to give to your low line product managers is extremely high for them to make decisions and create content that attracts clients. Old school, the people that are currently directors of marketing and vice presidents of marketing did not grow up in this, right? They've been doing it for 25 years. When they started marketing, it was 1995. Okay. And the world was different then. The world was the thick Uline. Oh, was on it?
We weren't going to mention any names, but we'll bleep that out later.
Yeah, well, oh well, it's out there. See, I know what you're talking about, but that
Yeah, yeah.
thing, that I mean, that's the world that they grew up in, and now we're in this, TikTok, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and they still don't get it. Like I'm looking at, like they'll join these communities, and the content they generate is the same thing they would have put in the newspaper. Like nobody cares about that. Put the
Right.
face of an individual up there. Like you look at a guy like Elon Musk, who gets it. He makes some decisions that I'm like, I don't know if I'd smoke weed with Joe Rogan, but everybody knows who he is in Tesla or whatever. If I ask you, who's the CEO of Unilever right now, unless you work for Unilever, you probably don't know. But guess
Yeah.
what? We all have a Unilever product in our homes. Every single one of us. Like, there's no way that you don't have one of their products in your house right now.
Right.
You know,
Right.
and you don't even know who they are, right? And some people don't even know that they've never even heard of them. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
that's
There's an interesting um, failure sort of in marketing right now, where you have companies that are trying to use new digital tools, but they miss the whole point. They miss everything, right?
yeah,
When TikTok came out, I remember I was in the powerlifting and strongman world at the time, and you had people that would post something to Instagram and then post the exact same thing on TikTok.
hmm,
So it was just, oh, here's another platform. I'm going to use it. And they didn't realize, it has a unique flavor to the content. Like it's there for a reason,
yeah,
and the people using it are thinking sort of in a different way.
right,
So there's a certain level of like social and emotional intelligence that has to go into, using the tools effectively. But at the end of the day, I really think that we may be first movers in this space, but I do think it's the future. There's just no reason to have a warehouse, full of stuff
for a
when,
warehouse.
yeah, I'm consuming the same stuff over and over. And if push comes to shove, I can go to, Walmart and buy some razor blades or something,
Yeah,
but I can't get a pallet of shrink wrap.
right.
So I should just have that set up, just like your dash buttons on Amazon, push
Yeah,
the button, get your detergent or your toilet paper, what have you. And it comes straight from the manufacturer. So you're not paying all of that ridiculous overhead.
yeah. Oh, and that's what I was trying to get at is that I'm hearing you describe what you're doing, and you're doing for this supply chain support, kind of, what's the word, ankle biter, right? Almost, because
Yeah.
this isn't something that is a in your face prime mover. And I was talking about this on LinkedIn recently of when I talk to business owners, when we say, okay, what keeps you up at night? It's always like the top line revenue generation activity, something that's going to bring me more revenue. It's never that. And that's correct. That is the proper way of thinking. However, these ankle biter stuffs, like what you're talking about, that affects the bottom line in the same way. In fact, sometimes a little bit bigger of a way, especially if your margin's like 10%. You save $5,000, and that's the equivalent of $50,000 in new revenue. What does it take to generate that? And I look at your model and what you're talking about, and to me, it's similar to this sort of marketing revolution and all of these other things that are just fundamentally changing the way we operate. But a lot of the people that are in this decision making realm, especially for the Fortune 100, established, famous 100-year-old brands, they do not. Those are the big container ships. They don't zip around like you do on a ski-doo. To turn
Yeah.
one of those things around, you gotta, like, you calling people, hey, we gotta turn the ship around, and then like that doesn't change easily.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. The lack of agility, right, in large organizations. And, you know, a lot of that comes down to fear. Like some of it has to do with organizational structure. A lot of large companies aren't very good at being large, if we're being frank. But a lot of it has to do with fear and empowerment and entire strata, multiple strata of management that won't take a risk or make a decision because they've been conditioned their career
right.
to, you know, play this game of minimize my risk. Right? I want to retire with my, pension 401k, and I'm not going to take a risk where I might get axed or something
Right.
like that.
Yeah, the risk versus reward ratio is wrong, because there's no real
Yeah,
reward for it either. You're in
that's
this,
correct.
you take a risk as a senior marketing man or senior manager of any sort. You're on the cusp of a directorship. It's not like you're going to tomorrow get a huge pay bump or a bonus or anything like that. Like, those are structured. It's going to be the same. You got 3 to 5% every single year. That's going to happen
Yeah,
unless you go when you interview for a job, and we got to interview everybody because everybody has an equal chance and an opportunity, and you may or may not get it. And yeah, so there is no reward for being risky. There's a reward for not
No,
taking risky.
that's a really a great observation, something that probably needs to be revisited, in the corporate space. But put yourself in the shoes of a general manager. For some context, I ran a site with a $25 million P&L, but my salary was like like that. So you know you're not making, like, that's not that much money,
Mhm.
especially for the amount of imaging, right? Well, most of these warehouses run on 7.5%, right, profit. So if you can save 10,000 a year in warehouse supplies, and we've saved customers more than that, but multiply that, we're talking about six-figure uh, addition to top line
Hmm.
equivalent, right,
Right.
in those savings. Well, that's great, but if I'm the general manager, am I going to rock the boat?
What's the
What? I'm not
reasoning?
going to get paid more,
Right.
right? My only incentive is pain, and this is you know the incentive for me to start this company was a pain situation. We
Mhm.
have to save a certain amount of money because we're contractually obligated, for these savings, and we could have hit that if it, so it's completely backwards, and that's been my experience. What if
Mm.
instead the incentive was to take risk and you're going to be rewarded for improvement?
Right.
But we have it backwards, right? You'll get punished for failure, but if you really create a lot of the, unless you're in sales, you don't you don't see any reward for it.
No, no, it's not. And a lot of it goes to the, I mean, there's a comfort level, right? When you get a certain size, and most of the time the experiences are not as drastic as somebody like Blockbuster, or IBM, right? But we can look at that example and say they got big, they got fat, they got corporate, they got comfortable, they got slow, they got dead, right? That's what happened there. Some of the other, some of the other companies and organizations, I think the barriers to entry are very high. If you if you want to create another auto manufacturer to take down a Ford and a GM because you want to be agile and the like, and you see these guys doing this electric stuff, you're gonna have a tough time. They can afford to be slow,
Yeah,
and they can afford to not, like, let's not, in their interest also is, let's not rock things too much. This is steady, this has worked,
yeah,
we're at the
yeah,
top, it's hard to get here, we're buddies with the politicians, and we can make the laws that make it even harder for people to come and compete with us, so let's just keep it chill.
yeah. There's all kinds of dynamics there. Um, I've been having this ongoing irreverent conversation with my one of my business partners, Jake. I think you had Jake Harrell on your program um, a few
I,
weeks ago.
I did, yeah.
So, yeah, he's one of my business partners at TBH, and we've been having this conversation. And since he's involved, of course, it's irreverent. Um, but
Speaking
the
speaking of Jake, I'm going to interview him again. He was joking
yeah,
about, like, he's going to get back on the podcast, and I was like, "Well, you should sign up as Blake Farrell and wear a fake mustache." And he did. He signed up.
he'll do it too.
He signed up. So I was like, I'm going to go ahead and open this and do this interview
Yeah,
just to see what he does.
yeah. Well, the gist of this conversation is, throughout her career, think of the director. Name any time that a director created value for the company,
Hmm.
and we're stuck. I've had one director in my career that created real value for the company,
I think
but
what
I've
I've
also had one
seen
director that
is guys stop a mistake. I've seen a lot of that.
mhm,
They've been good
yeah,
goalies.
yeah, yeah,
They're not
defend,
forwards, but they've been good goalies.
yeah, Yeah, that's a good analogy, good way of looking at it, right? Um, it's just sort of a joke about large companies. There's entire layers of management in there that frequently, uh, aren't creating value, aren't creating a lot of real value, and in one case in my career was actively destroying value. The company was worse off, because of this individual um, type of situation. So we just joke around about it, but really it's an indictment on sort of our business culture and the way we've evolved. And we're taking responsibility sort of collectively to say, how do we, as a team, come together to serve the community, serve our customers, create value, and do that in a way that is positive and empowering. And when we sort of evolved out of, at least, in the United States, evolved out of a business culture that was, you know, very punitive sometimes. Um, that's hard to do because there's no trust, right?
Mm.
So if I said to you, hey, you know what, we need to talk about how you create value company, all kinds of alarm bells are going to go off. You're like, hold on there, buddy.
What would you say it is you do here exactly?
Right,
I'm a people
exactly.
person.
Let me find my contract. I need to read through it really carefully,
Yeah.
and then I'll talk to you. Uh, so it's sort of self reinforcing, and I think that's why you see startups, um, sort of dramatically changing the game, because it's a fresh slate, right?
Mhm.
Um, and there's probably some, in the universe there's laws of physics, and I think there's something similar in business dynamics that maybe we haven't quite nailed down yet, but we're sort of aware of. I think Google is a great example of a company that started out fresh, and they didn't have a lot of policy, and they'd say things like "don't be evil,"
Mm.
and now here we are, and they're kind of the bad guy around the world. There's all kinds of lawsuits, and their corporate governance book is now 14 terabytes or whatever. Um, they couldn't avoid some of this just due to size and scale, right?
Mhm.
So it may be something that is somewhat unavoidable, or significant challenge with size.
I think as long as the market pressures don't exist that force you to make a change, I don't think you'll really see them. So, for instance, I look at like retail today, and how Amazon has forced them to either reimagine their model or change, right? Like this J.C. Penney, Macy's department store, like that doesn't work anymore. You have to provide the customer an experience. The product is not enough to get anybody in the store because I can get the product anywhere. There's got to be a
Yeah.
reason for me to physically go to your location. You want me to put on clothes and take a shower and gel up this beautiful mane and get in my car, put all of my children in this car and put the dog in the crate and drive 30 minutes and then go. You better be giving me something, right? Because otherwise I'm just tick, tick, tick. And, I hear the knock on the door. Your stuff's here. Like, oh, thanks. I didn't have to go anywhere. Um, so I think until that, but the barriers to entry we're starting to see with like 3D printing and our ability to do the software engineering and the cost of robots and all of this stuff. It's all going down. It's all getting easier. And soon we will see a revolution I think in a lot of industries as technology allows us to be more nimble and then forces those bigger companies. Um, and then your phone is going to be ringing a lot.
Yeah,
You know,
I really feel like I feel like we're close to Marx's concern now. A century later, like we're a lot closer to this idea that machines are going to take all the jobs. So what do we do, right? And we're having like this rehash of the same old conversation. You have this universal basic income idea and stuff like that. Well, you know, Marx couldn't see the future, neither can we. We're at the point now where we have technology that can do crazy stuff. I mean, a computer can design a better seatbelt anchor for a GM car than an engineer can now. And
Hmm.
it's 3D printed. So instead of a bent piece of metal, it looks like a spider web, but it's 60% lighter and 30% stronger, right?
Right.
Um, it's not going to be an option anymore. You're not going to be able to have some guy with CAD figuring out how to fold a piece of steel. You'll be required to use a computer and 3D print it because it's so much better,
Yeah.
right? And then you've got your NHTSA ratings and these other forces and pressures where you might theoretically have a choice, but you don't really.
I think it's an interesting world, and there's a lot of stuff that we just simply can't predict. I mean, the internet was not. I don't know how old you are, but I assume we're probably about the same age. And I tell my kids I'm older than the internet. And the look on their face, like, wait, there was a time when it didn't exist. Like, yeah, and the idea of it didn't make sense. And when it did come out, nobody understood how to use it and what the
Right.
capabilities were. And you look at how many internet jobs do we have today? Those did not exist and were not even in the future plans of existence for anybody 30 years ago. Was not a possibility. Didn't even think about it. What is the equivalent 30 years from now? Maybe it's
Yeah.
space engineer of some sort, and it's the guy who's in charge of, I don't know, doing some moon base crap, and a space miner or something. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I talked to a co-founder of SpaceX a couple of weeks ago, and he's developing an assembly methodology for rockets, so to reduce the cost of the rocket, so you can fire them every day, and it wouldn't cost
Yeah.
you. Like, we don't know, right? So let's just stay on top of it so we can be more agile. But I feel like I'm talking to the brick wall sometimes with some of this stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. The ability to change rapidly, but also I do think we're moving into a space where um, self-governance and ethics are going to be more important and more pronounced because business is moving far faster than legislation can keep up with.
Yep.
And businesses are actually being punished by consumers first
Yep.
before the government. So we have,
And they'll punish you harder.
and they'll punish you harder, right? So I feel like that sort of aspect of business is going to be really interesting moving forward. I don't think our current legislative framework is equipped to deal with the rate of change
Mm-hmm.
that we're seeing in business right now. So thankfully, you've got Reddit to tick on companies that are lines.
So I want to get a little bit more into your story. I mean, we let you say, yeah, and so I started this company and this is what we do. Okay, there's that sentence, I feel like it doesn't quite capture I'm sure there's somebody right now that's going to work every day. They've got that 9 to 5, they've got an idea, right? Make that leap. How, because you were doing that and then you made the leap. You held your breath and you jumped into the deep end. Talk to me a little bit about how that went down and how that conversation with the wife went too.
Yeah. Well, for starters, I'm a multiple irons in the fire guy. So I'm currently employed with another company that I also, have equity in, um, and am in the process of building a factory from scratch. I'm also over here running TBH, which, you know, because of the business model, it's fairly easy. It's less time consuming. Um, I have a publishing company, and I'm writing a couple of books, and I'm on a podcast next week. So some
Just a few
of
things.
my wife is used to it, right? this is what she married, right? I'm the guy, like, I'm always doing something. I single-handedly keep folders in business. Um, so so what kind of how it developed for me was I realized that I could do this, and because of, I guess, my business education, I was mentally equipped to evaluate where I was at. I think that's an important thing for people that want to be entrepreneurs or jump in. Spend time educating yourself on the basics of business so that you can assess your idea and do a little bit of um, contingency planning, or what happens if, or how am I going to handle this, type of thing.
Yeah.
So for me, it was pretty easy to assess, okay, I have these relationships with sourcing. That won't be a problem. And I have relationships with warehouses all over the country because I've traveled a lot with work. Um, so the sales piece, I already have that. What's in the middle? In the middle is money,
Mhm.
right? So I have to purchase goods and services and then bill somebody net terms and float that capital in the middle. And so we were able to say, okay, here's how much we can float. Here's how much money we have. So I can't oversell, right? I can only sell this much.
Mm.
Um, well, I was able to do that in an afternoon, right? Uh,
All right, you show off.
no, no, no. It's not challenging because I already knew what to look for. I knew
Yeah.
questions to ask, that sort of thing, right? Um, so for somebody that has an idea, the first question is, how do I capitalize on it? There's all kinds of great ideas. The most amazing thing about Elon Musk is not that he had this idea to reuse rockets, right? It's that he was able to capitalize on it. Like, it's
Mhm.
an actual program. Um, Tesla's an actual company. At the time, I don't know if you remember, but GM scrapped their EV program.
Mhm.
Like,
Yep.
you know what? No dogs, right? And along came this company and said, well, you know what? We're going to go the other direction and sell an EV to rich people, and then everyone will want them, right? And
Yeah.
and you have high-end German manufacturers now that are chasing Tesla, right?
It's just
Um,
wild, right?
it is, right? It's crazy. So, but the key is he was able to capitalize the idea. So that's the first question: is how do I actually make money? Where does the change hands? Who pays whom? When?
Mm.
How? That sort of thing, right? And then you should be able to look at your expenses, like what's it going to cost. So, for example, I have a t-shirt shop online as well, a Savage AF t-shirt company, or whatever. And right now we have one product. It's a t-shirt that says Washington Team Football, WTF. Um, but yeah, it's kind of popular. But the point is, there's zero capital there, right? It's this company that they everything for you, and you just get whatever, a couple of bucks every time they sell a T-shirt. So they have all of the infrastructure, zero investment on my part. I just had to use my graphic design skills to come up with design and put it on there, um, and I get paid commensurately, which is to say, not very much, right?
Right.
I just did it for fun. Um, so that's an example of a pre-existing architecture or structure that I can capitalize off of. I know how much to make, and then if I had a budget, I could easily say, okay, I have this sales goal, this revenue goal, so I have to sell this many t-shirts, right? Most ideas are a little more complicated than that.
Yep.
Your goal may be to sell t-shirts to support, um, like the Amazon deforestation projects, in South America. And so you come up with a T-shirt design. You know what? You don't have to figure everything out. There, like, you can go to Google right now and find a company that will print on demand for you. Um, and then your entire job becomes marketing on social media. Hey, help save the rainforest. Buy this T-shirt. It's super cool,
Right.
right? You don't have to be Patagonia, right? You're trying to raise money for this.
Yeah.
Um,
I
So
think understanding that expense ratio, and well, the other thing I feel like most people don't get is that the majority of businesses out there, their profit margins, you're looking at somewhere between, on the low end, 3 to 10%, the majority.
yeah,
Sometimes you'll get occasional, some service-based business, they'll hit 30, or a little higher, but generally that's what you're looking at as a profit percentage, right? And I have had conversations with folks. At one time, one guy said, "Yeah, I want to buy a calf, like a bull calf." And then a year later you sell it, you could buy it. I can't remember what he said, the numbers, but let's just, for argument's sake, he said it was like, oh, I can buy it for $50 and I can sell it for 1,000 a year later. And I thought, okay, where are you going to put it? How much land does it need? What are you going to feed it? How much does it cost to feed it every day? You got to feed it every single day. That's 365 days. So if it costs you $3 a day to feed that thing, you've already lost money. And it was like the first
yeah,
time he thought about it, like, oh yeah.
yeah,
And like, what if it gets sick and you got to pay a vet bill? Like, so when you talk about understanding those expenses, I think it's interesting. Well, you already had that P&L responsibility, so you're already seeing it, and I think that's one thing where if you're thinking about starting your business, getting a chance to look behind the curtain and look at those financials of whatever company you're in right now and see what those expenses look like, and what are all the little things that you're not thinking about that are going to hit you and that you will have
yeah,
to pay for, you know.
yeah. Yeah, I work with a lot of most older folks, which I guess I'm getting old enough now. They're mostly younger folks, but they'll talk about this vision they have. I know it's made for TV, but it always astonishes me um, when I watch Shark Tank. Here, people, and most of them have businesses, like they're actually running a business, and they're going before these investors, and they can't answer these basic business questions.
Yep.
Most of them are sold out on their product or service, right? They are missionaries for their product, right? And I see a lot of that, and that's good, and the passion is good. But I always tell folks, like, at the end of the day, it's all about the money, because you have to have the capital. Like, it's the grease that keeps the engine turning. Like, well, we don't care about money. We're a nonprofit. We drill clean water wells. In Africa, you better care about the money. That's what's keeping everything going, right?
Mhm.
Um, Went to school with a fellow who was in healthcare, and we were talking about lean and operations management, and the difference between cost accounting and throughput accounting. And he kind of smirked a little bit and said, "I'm glad I don't have to worry about this, because I'm in hospitals. We're in the business of saving lives, right?" I'm like,
That's why it's so expensive right there, because of that
yeah.
top
I'm
rosin.
like, this explains everything, right? Now I know, right? Um, so, but it's a good example. Some folks, they don't grasp it. It's all about the money. You have to have cash flow. You have to make more than you consume, unless you're the federal government. But if you're in business, you have to make more than you consume. Um, and those are things you need to think through. And then I have the 10% rule, which is always assume that you're going to have a 10% shit hits the fan moment, right? Like, something's gonna happen. Texas is gonna freeze over or whatever.
Yep.
Um, and you're going to incur, a 10% of your annual revenue expense all at once.
Yep.
And can you cover that? So, some contingency planning, risk planning, that sort of thing.
Yep. And being ready for that. Um, Something will always go wrong. Oh,
Yeah,
it's never going to be sunshine and rainbows. And when you do your ranges of the best to the worst, plan off of the worst case scenario,
yeah,
let yourself be kissed when the things go the other way. And like, oh yes, don't plan on, oh, we can make $1 million, blah blah blah, if we hit this number. Like, nope, plan for the one that's more realistic, and keep that. And I think the other thing is that you have a responsibility as a business owner, not only to yourself, but to all of those people that work in your business as well. And
Yeah.
that's something that frustrates me when I see business owners play willy nilly with that. Regardless of what you think politically, this My Pillow guy, the Mike Lindell dude, I
Yeah.
think he's done an absolute disservice to the people that work for him,
Yeah.
and injecting himself into politics the way he did, and now his company is in huge peril,
Yeah.
and that was just absolutely unnecessary. And now I feel for those employees that they're putting their families and their livelihood at risk because they have no control over what this dude says and does. um,
Yeah.
and so I think you talk about Shark Tank is one of my favorite things to watch as well, and I think about that as like what questions would I ask, and I've done some angel investing in the past too, and I think about how I approach things, and folks that actually, like, I've had people that have really good business model, and it was like this I don't know, I don't remember if they were like vegan cakes or what, but it was like little like sweets, brownies and donuts and stuff. It were terrible. Oh, it was so bad. Like, the numbers look great. My wife took a bite of one and was like, "This is gross." Like, yeah, I don't know where they're getting these numbers from, and then thinking about, well, they were bright siding those numbers, and they weren't, what is a more realistic type deal, right? Let's say you take your best case scenario, which was this little guy, and you say, oh, look, every scenario is going to be just like this best one, from here on out. No.
Yeah. And in that case, probably all based on first time sales, right?
Right.
So you can only grow so far on first time sales, right? You have to have repeat customers at
Repeat.
some point. So
Yeah. So you started the business, and then you've got like seven other irons in the fire.
yeah.
Do you see yourself slowing down at any point of saying, okay, I'm just going to focus on the one thing?
Um, I I don't know. Not right now. I'll say not currently. So I have uh, I have a passion for teaching
Mm.
and seeing people grow, and everything that I do has some positive impact on people and the community. So the reason that I started TBH Logistics was to fill a need and a pain point that I had, which was, why the hell am I paying $25 for a roll of stretch wrap that it cost them 85 cents to ship over here on a container, right? Um, so I'm creating real value there, and it's a revenue stream, for me personally that I'm in control of.
Yeah.
Um, I'm starting up this factory with this other company because I used to work with the owners, great guys, and I'd go to war with them, and they are not just providing high quality, good paying manufacturing jobs in communities that need them, but they're actually training. So it's mostly young men because it's the physical work and it's challenging, and a lot of the employees that we have come in don't have a clue how life works.
Mm.
And one of the business partners is in the financial world. It's a year they'll sit down and talk with folks like, here's what you need to do, here's how money works. So we have an 85% take rate on our 401k.
Nice.
Yeah, that's unheard of in the business world. But that's because we pay them to sit in a room with a financial advisor who normally charges a ton of money per hour, right?
Yeah.
To show them the math and to talk through like you can win. Um, I think we have 15 first-time homeowners, right?
Mm.
So that's something I want to be a part of.
Yeah.
Um, and we've talked like as leaders in this company, we're making generational change. Like these are people from Appalachia that your options were coal mining or cooking meth, and I'm not even being funny there. Like those are your two options.
Yeah.
Um, and we've changed the generational narrative. Now they have a vision and an understanding. Hey, if I apply myself over time and I take advantage of tax shelters and, tools like the 401k, I can actually retire well to do. I
Yeah,
didn't even know that was a thing, right?
that's
I
awesome.
thought retirement was, parking my RV on my dad's property, you know. Um,
I know the type. I used to live. Yeah, I know
yeah.
the type. I know your type.
Same thing, with
That's cool, man.
my books and publishing. It's an opportunity to share um, a positive message of how to win with people, and that's kind of the passion that drives everything I do. If it wasn't for specific people in my life who stepped up to the plate and said, you need to get your shit together and here's how,
Mhm.
I wouldn't be where I am. I'd probably still be loading trailers for Walmart. I mean,
Mhm.
I was happy. I had my pickup truck and my bachelor pad, and um, who needs more than that? I had a weight set in my bedroom. I didn't have a bed. I slept on the floor because I couldn't fit a bed and a weight set in my bedroom. Um, to be 25 again.
Yeah.
Uh,
Now I'm like, how soft is that mattress, and what material is the pillow made out of? Because it's got a,
yeah,
or my shoulder in the morning just kills me.
yeah, yeah. Now it's like I fall asleep, in whatever position, and I wake up, and my body's like, nope,
That
doesn't
was the
count.
wrong.
You
I
just lost 6 hours for nothing, and I'm not going to cooperate all day. You have to reset today.
That is so true, man. You force yourself to go to the gym, and it's like, no, I think I'm just gonna stretch today. That's what today's gonna be. It's gonna be a stretch day.
See, I've really simplified it for me. What I do is I go to YouTube and I put on like this powerlifting video and I get all pumped up, and then I don't work out. So that's as close as I get these days.
Oh, yeah, I got a little hefty in my old age, and I had to get some of that under control, and a few army injuries that were starting to like legit become more painful, and uh,
Yeah,
I had to move my body, or I was gonna get. I just don't want to be, I'm not even 40 yet, uh, but the amount of snap, crackle, and popping, I sound like Rice Krispie treats when I wake up every morning,
yeah,
and it's like I need to get some stuff under control, or when my kids are teenagers, they're going to be able to beat me up, and we got to make sure that that's not a possibility.
yeah, yeah. What I've got a set that's a barbell sort of with hooks and different resistance
Mm.
bands
Yeah,
you can use, and because it's dynamic with the bands, it's less pressure on my joints, when I'm in a compromised position.
sure.
uh, so I use that every day. I do have a bike in the basement, so I try to do 30 minutes every morning, um, and I stretch. So most of what I do now is related to mobility.
Yep.
I have to keep fit to keep pursuing what I love, but I mean, I'm married with kids. Like, I know I'm sexy. I did it all. So uh,
Yeah, that was good. That was good. I feel you. I know I've got the same, yeah, same problem here. So let's round it out with, why don't you tell us what kind of clients are best for you, and if one of them does happen to be listening, how they might get in touch with you.
yeah, great. So, if you run a warehouse, any of our listeners that run a warehouse, and you consistently use packing tape, corrugate, void fill, banding, your typical stretch wrap, your typical supplies for preparing stuff for shipment, get in touch with us, tbhlogistics.com. There's a contact form there. There's a phone number you can call directly. Our business motto is, if we can't save you money, we don't want your business. And so you can fill out the form and say, we order about 10 rolls of stretch wrap a month, and we'll go contact our suppliers, find out who wants that business, and come back with a quote. And if you can save money, great, we'll do business. If we can't save you money, then why the hell would you do business with us anyway?
Do you, yeah. Do you work in the US, anywhere in the US, anywhere in Canada, anywhere in the world? What is your geographical restrictions?
Well, realistically, to save any money, it'd have to be the 48 states. If Alaska and Hawaii, feel free to drop by, say hi, request a quote. It's probably going to be pretty high for shipping costs. So pretty much limited to the 48 contiguous states. Canada, Mexico, we do not ship internationally. We're not set up for that. So love
Okay.
all of our NAFTA partners, but U.S. only at this point.
But anywhere in the US, you guys can help them out.
Yes, sir.
Awesome. Well, you heard it. And now this is, if you have a warehouse, even if you're not just a primarily warehouse operation, but if you have a warehouse of some sort, uh, TBH Logistics, and I think I'll drop a link in the comments for folks so they can do that. John, thank you so much for sharing with us today and, having a wonderful, wonderful time hearing about all of your multiple projects and irons that you got going on.
Lewis, it was my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me on.
Appreciate it.